that I brought with me, if I can get it out of here, this is my only card.
We'll begin the last panel of the day in 5
I
minutes.
will.
If I can ask the panelists to go ahead and...
Oh, really? Oh, how interesting. Oh.
Hi, everyone. We're about to start the last panel of the day. I want to thank you all for continuing to be active listeners, and I hope that you're enjoying the conference so far. I just want to make a note that there will be a small reception at the lab on Figueroa after the last panel, so if you're interested in having questions that haven't been answered yet, please come join us to celebrate the end of this day. The last panel we have is focusing on consular diplomacy and specifically diasporic engagement. Robert Banks, the associate professor in the Annenberg School and also a former diplomat, will lead the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. I am today's moderator, but I'm also going to be a bit of a dictator since we have 4 panelists and we have to keep time here, so we'll be moving it along. Before we get into the panel, I wanted to make just a brief announcement about, for all you diaspora fans, that the Global Diaspora Forum will be hosting a conference on Friday, May 10th at 8 a.m. at the UCLA Faculty Center. And so if you are interested in this topic, it might be a very nice event to head over to. You can find out more information about that on www.gdfc.info. Well, today's topic is diaspora public diplomacy, and when I was asked to chair this panel, I thought it would be a good idea to read up a bit on the diaspora and on diaspora PD. You might think that any public diplomat, or in my case ex-diplomat, would be familiar with this topic, but not so, at least not for American PD practitioners. The American diaspora living abroad was never a focus of our public diplomacy, and we were legally enjoined from engaging diaspora communities in the United States. This is kind of, or especially ironic, given the central place the narrative of immigration plays in U.S. history and the role the U.S. plays in diaspora studies. For example, the American diaspora abroad has grown 900 times in the last 40 years, from a total of a little over 700,000 to today almost 6 million. And here at home, the U.S. has the largest number of global diaspora members of any country in the world. The Census Bureau of the United States identifies a diaspora member by asking 2 questions: country of birth or ancestry, and the latter of which the respondent can self-select, which is very important. By this measure, the largest such communities in the United States come from, in order, Germany, Ireland, Mexico, and the UK. Now today, when we're talking about diaspora communities, researchers tend to measure them solely by country of birth. And using this measure, the total number of foreign-born population in the United States is about 40 million people, or 13% of the entire population. Interestingly, almost 60% of them are non-citizens. The top 5 countries currently for the foreign-born in the United States are Mexico, which has 12 million, China, India, the Philippines, and then Vietnam. The makeup of American diaspora community has changed dramatically in the last 40 years. Most of today's immigrants come from Latin America and Asia, not Europe, as they did 40 years ago. Today, almost 70% reside in the South and West, whereas 40 years ago, 70% resided in the Northeast and Midwest. Today, they reside not just in cities, but also in suburbs. Their average age is 41 years old. 40 years ago, it was 57 years old. 85% of them speak another language other than English at home. So for my diplomatic colleagues here, at least in the U.S., they are dealing with far larger, more diverse, more geographically dispersed, and younger diaspora communities. But what else can we say about them? Well, the first generation has more active ties to the home country. The size of the community doesn't really matter. It's the level of engagement of that community in terms of their influence. And lastly, diaspora communities have influence. They send remittances. Last year, from the United States alone, $51 billion went from the United States worldwide. Diaspora communities make investments. They establish or support businesses. They make charitable contributions, they volunteer, they support political parties. And in countries that allow them, they vote, not just at home, but in their countries of heritage. They campaign for human rights and good governance. They offer help in times of humanitarian crisis. And they can be good sources of information, even of intelligence. So from this list, it's clear why diaspora communities are of great interest to both home and host countries. They have political, economic, social, humanitarian, and even security impact. Today, we are fortunate to have with us 4 distinguished diplomatic practitioners from the California consular community. And I look forward to hearing from each of them about how they approach outreach to their respective diaspora communities. Do they specifically target these communities? Do they offer different programs for diaspora and non-diaspora communities? Do they do research to determine their audience and its needs? How does the home country's population view those who left for America, and how does that impact their engagement? To answer these and related questions, let me introduce in alphabetical order our guest panelists. They are, first, Tolga Arslan, Vice-Consul at the Turkish Consulate in Los Angeles. He's a career diplomat since 2010, but has prior experience with the Turkish government in leadership development. He has a master's degree in public administration from the University of Central Florida and did doctoral work in public administration and policy at the University of Georgia. Next, Maria Helen Barber de la Vega is the Consul-General from the Philippine Consulate in Los Angeles. Ms. Barber de la Vega is a career diplomat who must love LA since she is currently on her second assignment here. Previously, she served as Philippine ambassador to Burma and the DCM in Beijing. She has also worked in Japan, Spain, and Indonesia. She holds a master's degree from the NITSA School at Johns Hopkins. Next, we have Carlos Gonzalez Gutierrez, Consul-General from the Mexican Consulate in Sacramento. Mr. Gutierrez has been a career diplomat since 1987, and he must really love LA since he's also on his second assignment, but more importantly, he is a fellow Trojan, having received his master's degree in international relations from USC. Mr. Gutierrez has held a number of very senior positions dealing with diaspora affairs, including serving as executive director of the Institute for Mexicans Abroad from 2003 to 2009. And next is Cyril Sibusiso Ndab, the Consul-General from the South African Consulate here in Los Angeles. He's a career diplomat who has served in New York, Rwanda, and most recently as the Deputy High Commissioner in the UK. To begin, we're going to start with our representative from the Philippine Consulate in Los Angeles.
I'm small, so I have to stand up. Is it on? We're beginning with my last presentation. The first one, Diaspora and Consular Diplomacy, the view from the trenches. Thank you. Well, I wish to thank the Association of Public Diplomacy Scholars and the USC for this kind invitation to invite me to this interesting seminar and talk about the Philippines' public diplomacy efforts, specifically our community engagement with the Filipino diaspora around the world. I wish to give you an overall picture on these themes to give others ample time to make their presentation and engage the panel more for a question and answer forum. I myself has been here early since this morning because I would like to learn more insights from the seminar. Maybe you should do it from your side. There are about 10,455,788 overseas Filipinos throughout the world as of 2011. And out of this number, there are 3,430,864 Filipinos in the United States. We are now the #1 Asia-Pacific ethnic community in California. Varied profiles of overseas Filipinos in the world were migrants, professional and skilled workers, even household staff members, caregivers, entertainers, religious, and many more. The primary source of my country's economic growth is overseas remittances from them. In 2012, it posted $25.39 billion, and no single investor would put that in my country. And because of that money, the diaspora has been a significant contributor to local infrastructure projects and community developments in the Philippines as well. May I just present, next slide please, the top 10 destinations of, we divide this into land-based and sea-based workers. Because here in the United States, we both have these categories: sea-based workers, land-based workers, and the migrants, or the emigrants as we call them. So you have a list, the top 10, Saudi Arabia number 1, and number 10 is Malaysia. And you can see that we're actually spread out around the world, from Asia to Europe to Americas, the Middle East. Next slide, please. This is an outline of the remittance flows. And again, just to indicate how much contribution of Filipinos from the United States, it has always been an increasing trend. It varies from 30 to 15% of the share of Filipinos in the United States contributing to remittances to the Philippines. So in 2012, out of that 21.39 billion US dollars, 9,116,000 came from Filipinos in the United States. Next slide, please. How does the Philippine government engage the Filipino diaspora? This is very much different because we come from the bureaucracy, so most of the time you could look at it more as a propaganda and influence. And so we have 4 agencies involved: the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, which is under the Department of Labor and Employment. This is the government arm that manages the migration of Filipino workers overseas. And its mandate is to promote and develop the overseas employment program and protect the rights of migrant workers. Next is the Overseas Worker Welfare Administration, which is the social protection agency in the sense that it develops responsive programs and services for the social protection of its members, like with a fee of US $25, that would entitle an overseas Filipino worker to social benefits related to disability, death, burial, education and training, worker welfare assistance program, and repatriation and reintegration programs. Next slide, please. Next is the agency where I belong, the Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs. One of the main pillars of Philippine foreign policy is to promote and protect the welfare of Filipinos overseas. And so as even ILO and IOM and the other UN agencies have acknowledged, we are probably one of the few ministries in the world that has a very direct, proactive engagement with Filipinos overseas. We have in our office the creation of the Office of the Undersecretary for Migrant Workers. It is an office with the rank of a vice minister and reports also directly to the Office of the President. And we have a unit, it's called the Assistance to Nationals Unit, or the ATN unit, established in all foreign service posts, whether in Asia, Africa, America, or Latin American countries, with a direct ATN hotline number. It's at 24/7, where any Filipino in distress can call us up. So if you look at the websites of most of our Philippine Foreign Service posts, the first number that you will see there is what we call as an ATN hotline, because our government do recognize that we have many Filipinos around the world. I remember a famous anecdote when our previous foreign minister went to Nepal, and there's this isolated place, and in a hotel, the gentleman who met him was a Filipino, and my foreign minister said, "What on earth are you doing on the top of this, close to Mount Everest?" And he said that, "Well, that's the reason I'm here, because I know one of these days a Philippine foreign official would come to visit us, because they know that we try to go and visit most of our constituents abroad. As the DFA, that's the Department of Foreign Affairs, we do undertake proactive engagement with host country law enforcement officials. This is like a regular dialogue with them, with the LAPD, with FBI, so that we know more or less how our community, whether they're law-abiding or they're creating some problems. And I'm just happy to say that at this stage, so far the feedback that I've been receiving, and I hope my counterparts are not just being polite, but they told me that you have a very good community here in California. So at least I'm happy to hear that. Next is to seek support for various international and regional agreements involving overseas Filipino workers. Maybe not many of you are familiar that, for instance, in the WTO before, the inclusion of the movement of natural persons was an initiative of the Philippines. And the International Convention on the Promotion and Protection of Migrant Workers and their Families is an initiative of the Philippines. The Global Migration Forum, which on May 10, one of the shepherds and pioneering country initiators of that forum is the Philippines. And this is all part of our recognition and understanding that we need to do more for our Filipinos overseas, because precisely of the recognition that there are about 10 million of them around the world. What do we do with our communities here? We engage our communities in regular dialogues. In my schedule of activities, and I'm sure the other Consuls-General and Consuls also do the same, but it's 24/7. My Saturdays and Sundays are reserved for the Filipino community. They are hometown associations, alumni associations, media, even the religious, nuns, caregivers, name it, and they all come knocking at the Consulate-General in Los Angeles. Not really asking for help, but it's our job to engage them by telling them what's happening in the Philippines. Because only by doing these things, they have a full understanding of what is expected of them as Filipinos overseas. And because two of the most positive values that Filipinos are known for are about faith and family. And so we try to nurture this, even in our own PD messaging with the community and our host country. Next slide, please. I've done this before. Next slide, please. Let me just cover this last agency, the Commission on Filipinos Overseas, which is our soft power and our PD phase, our public diplomacy phase. It was created in 1980, and because we believe that the diaspora is fast emerging as one of the forces for development in this globalized world. As early as 1989, the CFO institutionalized the Lingkod sa Kapwa Pilipino, or Link the Philippines Development Program, which became the main conduit for development support for overseas Filipino communities. Currently, it has channeled over 2 billion pesos worth of development assistance. That's close to $1 million. The CFO's latest initiative is the Diaspora to Development, or D2D, which aims to provide framework and strategies for Philippine diaspora for development in 10 action areas. Business Advisory Council assists overseas Filipinos to set up business partnership in the Philippines. Brain Gain, the Brain Gain program, or the Alay Dunong sa Bayan, systematizes and strengthens skills and technology exchange, transfer in fields such as science and technology, engineering, arts and culture. And then the Diaspora Investment develops new financial instruments for overseas Filipinos. The Teach, Share, or Balik Turo entices the return to the Philippines of overseas Filipino academics and professionals to teach and work with the academe in strengthening academic programs of partner schools. The Tourism Initiative supports the drive for Balikbayan, that means returning overseas Filipinos, tourism by encouraging migrant investments in small tourism enterprises like local bed and breakfast and other tourism-related services, such as health and wellness service. The Global Legal Assistance Program mobilizes support of overseas and local Filipino lawyers and legal experts to provide legal assistance and advice to overseas Filipinos in distress. And of course, there's this medical mission coordination, wherein we invite doctors, nurses, and other medical-related professions to undertake a medical mission, especially in times of disasters, because the Philippines is a country that's prone to natural disasters, arts and cultural exchange, and return and reintegration. Next slide, please. At the operational level, public diplomacy at the Philippine Consulate-General in Los Angeles is focused on proactive engagement and reaching out beyond our grasp. All possible tools, we use them: social media, mobile consular outreach. I mentioned earlier about partnerships with PhilCom organizations, especially the broadcast, print, and e-media. And I must say, the next video that we're going to present, this was an offshoot of the inputs coming from Filipinos overseas of what they wanted to see in Philippine tourism. And because of the help of our own Filipino communities overseas, this particular public diplomacy has earned for us the 4 million tourists that we enjoyed last year. Please enjoy the film.
Fun. Philippine Islands. It's more fun in the Philippines. In the Philippines. Philippine Islands. In the Philippines.
Thank you.
The next presenter will be Mr. Ndab. You can do it from here if you'd like.
Thank you so much for the invite. I do not have a prepared speech. Neither did I bring in, a video. I'll bring it next time. Let me just tell you that unlike in the United Kingdom in London, where it was very easy, to quantify the number of South African expatriates there, who numbered between 300,000 and 350,000. It's very difficult here in the United States, and I will tell you why it's difficult. In the UK, we had, quite a number of professionals, mostly the nurses, and it was easy then to register them through the program which we extend to all South Africans. It's called Registration of South Africans Abroad. So it would have been easy, it was indeed easy, for them to come to the mission to register. Here in the US, the complications are because quite a number of South Africans, they left South Africa a long time ago for various reasons. Some of them, the white compatriots, they left South Africa because they were running away from military conscription. And then they found themselves, into the US, and then they just blended with the locals here. And some of them, received, the permanent citizenships in this country, and it therefore becomes difficult for them to come over, because some have even lost South African citizenship because of that. Because once you acquire a foreign citizenship, then you automatically lose. You have to register with us in order not to lose the South African citizenship. And the second set of South Africans were those that ran away, from apartheid. Those, again, they left, they blended with the local people, and quite a number of them, acquired, a permanent citizenship in this country. And then some of the South Africans are here after the new dispensation, after South Africa became independent and a free country in 1994, with the first multiracial democracy, and then they felt that the ruling party, African National Congress, it's a communist, which is not. It's a big lie. So some of them, they didn't want to be, to be under a new black government. We do extend, services. We do have in the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, we do have services that we render, to our expatriates abroad. These range from the documentations, your passports, your identity documents, and to birth certificates, death certificate, marriage certificates, and also certification of all the documents, that one needs, that goes hand in hand with your South African citizenship. And we also do assist. There is a chief directorate within the department that also assist. We stand ready to assist South Africans that found themselves in distress in times of natural disasters and what have you. Also the evacuation plan, we do have it. At our mission. So then South Africans, as I said, that we do have the registration of South African abroad, and it has been very slow and painful because of the reasons which I've just laid out, the reasons which why some other people left South Africa and what have you. And we also try to reach out to them through the celebration of our national holidays, whether it's Human Rights Day on the 21st of March, or whether it's the Youth Day whether it's also Youth Day on June 16, or whether it's the Africa Day. By the way, we're also reaching out not only to South African expatriates, but also to the African diaspora in general. You will, of course, recall that South Africa last year, my president hosted the Diaspora Summit, which saw all the heads of state, and government from the Caribbean and also from Africa, all descending in South Africa. Because in the year 2006, when the heads of state of the African Union set in 2006, yeah, to be precise, 2006, they realized that Africa, as it is now, is divided into 5 sub-regions. You have the Arab Maghreb Union, which caters for countries like Algeria, Egypt, Sudan, and you also have ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, which caters for countries like Nigeria. I was surprised when the moderator said that he named, I mean, quite a number of countries, I mean, through which, whose diasporas, you know, I mean, are too big in this country. And I don't know, I'm not sure, because I thought Nigerians, I mean, also number, you know, in various countries, including in the US, you know, they also have a very big expatriate community. So we do then reach out, I mean, to our own nationals, and through the celebration of our national days. And as I said, that now with those 5, it was decided, the heads of state of the African Union decided that there is also the 6th region of Africa that is found also in this country, the African Americans, as well as also the CARICOM communities. So we also reach out, I mean, to beyond South Africans, but also to be as inclusive as we possibly can. And thank you.
Next, we will turn to Mr. Arslan.
Hello, my name is Tolga Arslan. I'm the Vice-Consul of Turkey in Los Angeles. I would like to thank you very much for inviting me to this wonderful event. May I ask which platform? First, I would like to give you the institutions that play an important role for Turkish public diplomacy. I classify them in 3: government, private, and non-governmental. For government, as you might expect, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs plays an important role. And also Prime Ministry has Turkey scholarship. Turkey means Turkey in Turkish, to foreign students. I believe it's around 3,000 foreign students have full scholarships in Turkey, are invited from around 90 countries to Turkey. And there is a Turkish Cooperation and Coordination Agency which plays the role of USAID, which provides development aids to various countries, also helps the cultural projects as well. And universities, they also have scholarship programs that invite foreign students to study in Turkey. And private institutions, Turkish Airlines plays an important role. I will explain it later. And entertainment industry, especially the movie and TV series, are very popular in Caucasus region, Middle Eastern region, and as well as Balkans region. For instance, Nur, Turkish TV series, are quite popular in Middle East. That everybody loves it. Also, Valley of the Wolves are popular in various countries. I will come to that later as well. And non-governmental, Turkish Red Crescent and various NGOs offering help in emergencies and development aid as well. And of course, our main topic is diaspora and NGOs in foreign countries. Government, Ministry of Foreign Affairs are expanding. The Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs are expanding in recent years. We are one of the top countries in terms of number of missions in the world. We are among the top 10. And we have 124 embassies, 77 consulates, 12 permanent representation, which makes the total 213. USA has 271 missions abroad. Prime Minister, as I mentioned, offers 3,000 scholarships. it's 40, this year it's 46,000, I forgot the thousand there. 46,000 applications have been submitted from 90 different countries. And they are mainly not graduate but undergraduate studies. We believe that they are important for Turkey in terms of strengthening the image of Turkey abroad, building cooperation with various countries, and the best way, I believe, one of the best ways is through education. So that's why we invite foreign students to study in Turkey. We have some good universities in Turkey. And Turkish Cooperation and Coordination Agency provides development and aid programs as well as cultural heritage protection. It has offices in 32 countries and programs in 100 countries, and offers, I believe, in total of not just this $1.2 billion in foreign aid. It's not just offered by Turkish Cooperation Agency, but quite some of it goes through Turkish Coordination and Cooperation Agency. And universities, there are currently 26,000 foreign students from 145 countries studying in Turkey. And this is the map of Turkish Cooperation and Coordination Agency offices around the world. As you can see, it mainly focuses on Turkey's immediate environment around Middle East, Balkans, and Caucasia. And Turkish Airlines, you might ask why an airline play an important role for public diplomacy. Well, we, as the foreign ministry, we actually have very good relationship with Turkish Airlines. It's one of the best airlines in the world, chosen best airline in Europe in 2012 and 2010 as well, I believe. It flies to 189 destinations, 40 domestics and 149 foreign destinations, which makes Turkey quite accessible to foreigners. And for Turks to travel all around the world as well. Turks have the opportunity to travel all around the world as well because of Turkish Airlines. And we believe that more destinations bring more business to Turkey, more foreign trade, export and import as well, more tourism, more delegations comes to Turkey and from Turkey to abroad as well, and more interaction with foreign communities. I can give you an example for more interaction. Los Angeles-Istanbul line, which was opened 1.5 years ago. Before that, almost no high-level delegation ever visited Los Angeles, almost. But after it opened, for instance, this April, only 2 ministers came from Turkey. Minister of Trade and Minister of Health came from Turkey to Los Angeles for official visit. And I'll give you another example. I met with this Argentina colleague of mine in a reception, and he told me about the Turkish Airlines, how he flew with it, how he was so satisfied with the airlines. And he had 2 other colleagues who were posted to Pakistan after their post in Los Angeles. So he suggested them to travel with Turkish Airlines, which travels from Los Angeles to Istanbul, Istanbul to Islamabad then. And the way they did it, they went to Istanbul, they stayed there for a while, 3 days, 4 days, so it brought tourism to Turkey, and then they went on to their final destinations. And this happens a lot. A lot of people, when you look at the flights from Los Angeles, half of it, or more than half of it, is not Turkish. And it's not mostly American as well. It's mostly diaspora communities from, for instance, Pakistan, India, Balkan countries, Middle Eastern countries. They travel through Turkish Airlines. Istanbul is a good hub for them, a nice hub. So it brings more interaction to Turkey. Turkish Airlines is helping us. We are expanding our number of embassies in Africa. And Turkish Airlines are adding more destinations in Africa as well. Turkey is the only country in the world who has an embassy in Somalia. And Turkish Airlines is the only private airlines that has a regular flight to Mogadishu, Somalia, which goes hand in hand. And Turkish Airlines helped us evacuate Turks and as well as other foreign nationals from Libya when the Libya crisis occurred. We were able to evacuate 25,000 people in 1 week, which was a great success, I believe. And we not only evacuated just Turkish nationals, we evacuated, I believe, 40 other foreign nations as well. So I will go. This is the Turkish Airlines flight map. As you can see, it flies all around the world from one destination. It provides a good hub. I need to hurry because of time constraint. Turkish Red Crescent and various NGOs also offers help. Public diplomacy, the most important asset, I believe, is the diaspora for us. Diaspora plays the role of bridge between the country of residence and country of origin, and they increase bilateral trade. They play a significant role in shaping Turkey's image. When you ask the peoples, what do you think about Turkey, if they have an idea, they usually have that idea from the Turkish person whom they met, whom they befriended in the past. Diaspora and NGOs play significantly expand the reach of diplomacy. I will give you some examples. Turkish diaspora statistics, let me skip to that. And how do we deal with diaspora? We have open communication channels. When people call me, I respond. When people come to visit, I respond. I met probably 5% of Turkish diaspora living in Los Angeles already in 6 months. I've been here for 6 months. So I met a lot of people. We try to bring people together, encourage them to adopt the country of residence while preserving their identity, and encourage civic participation in the country of residence, support them in any way we can if they need help, and bring diaspora and officials together as well. For instance, when ministers visit for other purposes, we always bring the ministers, high delegations together with the diaspora, which increases the morale of diaspora as well, and the ministers as well. And I will give you 3 examples of Turkish diaspora activities. This is the Children's Day Festival, which is a festival in Turkey, which is a holiday in Turkey. A Turkish diaspora organization organized by Turkish American Cultural Association of Washington organized a festival in Seattle this year. This year, local communities of 34 different nationals participated in the festival. Children coming from different cultures presented their local dances and music. 2 groups came from Seychelles and Mongolia. And in Turkey, we have a tradition of the high ranking officials of the government give their seat to a child on that particular day, and that child gives a message to the society what he thinks important. And this tradition, Turkish diaspora organization were successful in making this tradition of Washington State as well. Here is a kid in the seat of the Washington State's lieutenant government. Her name is Lara, and here are some kids. They discussed. They are at the opening ceremony of the Senate, Washington State Senate, and they discussed bullying in schools with Senate representatives on that day. And this was done just by a NGO, Turkish NGO, which we are very proud of. And Turkish Film Festival, it's an amazing organization, literally, and it started 2 years ago by a group of Turkish film students, and the short film competition received 165 submissions. They brought these jury members together. We, as Consulate or the Ministry, could never do by ourselves. Ron Yarksa, who is the co-chairs of Foreign Language Committee of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, Howard Rodman, Rob Nelson, Elvis Mitchell, these are all very well-known figures in movie industry. And if I may, can I use the video? I would just like to present you who these Turkish students are. This is a very short video. This is 5 minutes video, but first 1 minute will present you. Yes. Look at who the people organized this event.
Festivali. Los Angeles Türk Film Festivali. Tabii enerji yok. Burada Hollywood'da hangi film festivallerine gitmedik ki? Almanya, Fransa, Polonya,
Bulgaristan, Kazakistan,
Dubai, Katar,
İran, Yunanistan.
Cibuti.
Cibuti.
He, Cibuti.
Ama bir Türkiye Film Festivali yoktu.
Geçen seneye kadar. Geçen senekinden daha iyi bir festival düzenleyebilmek için.
Özgür kalabilmek için.
özgür bir festival için.
Desteğinizi bekliyoruz. We will work for it.
Yaşasın sinema!
Kadrajdan çıktı. Tekrar alalım.
Well, these are the young people who organized this magnificent event by themselves. I truly appreciate, and this shows how a diaspora and community play an important role in enhancing a country's image. And can I go back to the PowerPoint presentation? Okay, thank you. Well, lastly, last example, Anatolian Cultures and Food Festival, which is organized by a Turkish NGO as well. This is the fourth year of this festival. Last year, 50,000 people, mostly Americans, 45,000 of them are Americans, visited this festival. In festivals, there is a civilization path which consists of 14 gates, each representing different civilizations like Hittite Empire, Lydia, etc., etc. Three-dimensional giant-sized replicas of 5 different cities of Anatolia, Grand Bazaar, and Istanbul are accessible, and there is the various number of Turkish food as well. We can skip to the video that shows, that tells more about this festival than I can do. All from the festival. It's going to be in Orange County Fairgrounds this May between 16th and 19th. You can go there if you like to. I strongly recommend it. And in conclusion, there's no need for PowerPoint presentation. I believe personally, that diaspora can achieve what a government institution, the whole government cannot achieve. I'll give you a short example of that. The opening movie of the Turkish Film Festival was a very famous film in Turkey, and his producer as well as director is a very famous, Yılmaz Erdoğan, very famous. He's very famous in Turkey. And we were talking, and I was mentioning him about how these young young students are very successful in organizing such an event. And I told him that I believe we wouldn't be able to do it if, as a consulate or as an embassy or as a ministry, such a successful film festival. And he said that if my minister would invited him, he wouldn't have come to the festival. These students, enthusiastic young students, invited him, and he accepted the invitation. That shows that, as I said, diaspora can achieve what we cannot. And that's it. That's culture. Thank you.
And now we will turn to Mr. Gutierrez from Sacramento.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience and for the kind invitation from the Association of Public Diplomacy Scholars for your annual conference. My name again is Carlos Gonzalez Gutierrez. I am the Consul-General of Mexico in Sacramento. Mexico has 10 consulates in the state of California and 50 consulates, 50, in the whole United States. Of those 50, 16 are consulate generals. Do you have, yeah, that's me. Would you like to use the...
It's just, I don't know how to use the software, how to switch the slides from one to another. Everyone's familiar with Open Office?
That's it. Perfect. Thank you very much. Could we return? Oh, I have the control, right? Here. Perfect, perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Well, first of all, let me tell you what does a consulate do? What does the Mexican government responsibilities vis-a-vis their nationals abroad? And I may say, in this, we are pretty similar, my colleagues and myself. All consulates, more or less, have the same very basic obligation, because that's a very basic obligation from the state. We need to protect our nationals abroad. That's our main responsibility in life. In case of Mexico, we do it because of the size of the diaspora, and I'll tell briefly about that in a moment. We do it, in my opinion, through three main tracks. The first track is documentation services. We provide passports, we provide consular IDs, birth certificates, testaments to people abroad. I am a judge. I can marry people, Mexicans who live within my consular jurisdiction. That's part of my responsibility. Also, like other consulates, we provide legal assistance to Mexicans in dire straits, Mexicans who are in troubles in our consular jurisdictions. We visit jails. We help in the repatriation of human remains. We offer legal representation, etc. And the third track, vis-a-vis the engagement with our diaspora, is community organization. We work in every consulate. For example, there's a Ventanilla de Salud, whose main responsibility is to help people who do not have health insurance to find a medical home. We offer scholarships. In my consulate, almost 200 scholarships we offer every year for college students. We bring teachers. We donate books. We help in the 3-for-1 program to finance local infrastructure projects in the communities of origin of these migrants. So we do documentation, we do legal services, we do community organization, and also we do promotion. But this is not focused exclusively on the diaspora. Now, very briefly about me. I'm a proud alumnus of this university. Thank you very much again for bringing me back to the campus. I'm a career diplomat. I was saying that there is 50 consulates all around the United States. Sacramento is one of the 16 consulate generals that there are in the United States. My jurisdiction covers 24 counties that you can see over there. That's the northeastern part of California. And my job, as I said, is to protect the interests of Mexicans in my jurisdiction. Now, some numbers about the Mexican migration. In order to reserve some time for questions, I will not spend too much time here. You can see there are three main characteristics of the Mexican diaspora. One, its size. It's huge. We are talking about, if we are talking about the whole United States, we are talking about 11.4 million Mexicans born in Mexico who live here in the United States. 11.4 million Mexicans, according to a report from the Pew Hispanic released just a couple of days ago. Of those, approximately 6 million, approximately half, are undocumented. Another very important characteristics that makes the Mexican diaspora different from other diasporas is that we are concentrated, the Mexican diaspora is concentrated in one single country. There are many Mexicans all over the world, but because there are so many here, 98% of our diaspora is living in the United States. And the third characteristics that I would like to call your attention is that the Mexican diaspora is concentrated at the bottom of the social pyramid. 60% of Mexican immigrants have not earned a high school diploma. So do not have a high school diploma. They live in the margins of society because of the relatively low schooling levels. Only 6% of Mexicans born in Mexico who live in this country has earned a university degree. So that's the basis of, that's the main characteristics of our diaspora that marks our work. As you know, things are going to change and are changing very quickly. Not only because Mexicans are improving their quality of life here, are improving their school levels in the United States and all over the world, but also because we are not, we are running out of Mexicans to export. For the last 3 years, the net flow of newcomers from Mexico is almost zero. This is a very important structural change in the dynamic between our two countries, because this migration started in the late 19th century. And for the first time, and that this doesn't mean that this will be the case for centuries and centuries or for the near future, but at least for the last 3 years, the net flow is almost zero. There are many reasons. You can see there in the screen some of them. The recession, of course, the better control of the southern border in this country. It's harder to cross it if you are undocumented. And also the fact that my country is one in which there is a growing middle class. There are more opportunities in Mexico to stay there, to study, to get a loan, to buy your own house, to buy your car, to aspire to a middle class middle income style of life. So there are not that many people that want to come here. And that, I think, marks what we're going to see in the next few years. I'm sorry for that strange line. I don't know what happened when we downloaded, but this is what you're going to see in the next few years regarding Mexico. This is what you saw with Spain a few decades ago. And this is what happens with countries that develop. We are a country in a migratory regime. Our migratory regime is in transition. The more we grow, the more we will be importing workers for other countries. And the less native workers will go abroad in order to serve in other economies. So, and I will finish with this. If things are changing, and if I'm at the center of public diplomacy, I think that it would be worthwhile to finish my chat sharing with you 10 lessons from selling our message. No? We are in a very interesting point in history, because we've been for 20 years systematically trying to develop and engage, develop a relationship and engage our diaspora on a systemic way. But now things are going to change. Things are going to change because we are, as I was saying, a country with a migration regime that is in full transition. So it's important to have stop and think about the 10 main lessons in terms of the way we have sold so far our message to the diaspora. It's important because we are, after all, in the Center for Public Diplomacy. First, the first lesson, in my opinion, is that you have to have clarity about what your goal is. This sounds easier than what it actually is, because it's difficult to realize that you are an emigration country. It's difficult to end the denial and the wishful thinking about the illusion of impermanence. You want to think that the diaspora is a temporary phenomenon. So it took us decades, literally decades, for Mexico, and this is also the story of many other homelands, to realize that millions of people have migrated for good, and to develop programs to engage that diaspora on a permanent basis. So the first lesson is have clarity. And now we can tell you very clearly what do we want by engaging the diaspora. And what we want is to empower it. Our objective is empowerment. Empowerment of these communities so that they are less invisible, both in Mexico and in the United States. How we do that? Mostly by promoting their integration into their host society. This is counterintuitive. This is counterintuitive. For example, Samuel Huntington said, newcomers do not want to integrate into the United States. They look only to Mexico. In fact, it's completely the opposite. The newcomers don't want to look back to Mexico. It's only the ones that are able to reach the middle class, that are able to become US citizens, that are able to leave the transnational life in a more political way, that they turn back to their homeland and say, hey, I want to engage with you. I want to have, I do represent a community. So the more we help them integrate into the host society, the easier it will be for Mexico to develop a long-term strategy for a population that most likely is going to stay here for good. I'm talking about the vast majority. The third lesson, the consulate is a service-oriented agency. This is crucial. People in my foreign service like to think that they come to serve in the mission of Mexico to Vienna when they come to Sacramento. It's more useful to think that you're coming to the DMV office in Los Angeles. We receive 500 people every day wanting documents, asking for consular protection. We receive literally masses of people, not only in my consulate, but everywhere. So it's crucial to send that message. Somos una oficina de servicio. We are a service-oriented agency. We have to be pretty accessible. We have to make things easy for people to reach us. So the fourth lesson is that vis-a-vis the immigrant generation, vis-a-vis the ones who were born in Mexico, it is, we need very experienced and well-trained staff who is able to understand that the relationship with that immigrant generation is going to be pretty conflictive. And in this, I do believe that it's not because they are Mexicans, but because they are immigrants. Immigrants in general do not like the government of their homeland because nobody wanted to migrate in the first place. They don't like the idea. And they blame, to a great extent, the government of their homeland for not giving them enough possibilities and opportunities to stay. But the burden is on us. The burden is on us. It is us, the Mexican consular officials, the ones who have to build those bridges, understanding in the beginning that the relationship is going to be pretty conflicted. That's why I say that it's crucial to have professional, well-trained, specialized staff in this type of business. The fifth lesson, vis-a-vis the first generation, is that you need to be consistent. You have to draw a line in the sand and say, every time you invite me to this and this and this and this event, I'm going to be there. But every time you ask me to go to a political march and support a candidate versus the other, I'm not gonna go beyond this line and be consistent. Because that's the only way to build trust. After all, as we mentioned in the morning, it's only a matter of trust building. This is a business of building trust with immigrant communities. And the only way to build trust is by defining very clearly where your line is. Lesson number 6. At the heart of the media strategy, yeah, lesson number 6. At the heart of the media strategy, you have to have a lot of presence in Spanish television and short radio messages. We do have Twitter, we do have Facebook, we have very interesting email blasts that some of you, those who gave me your card, will receive soon. And we are pretty active, in my opinion. But let's not fool ourselves. If you are a consul, you need to wake up 5 a.m. in the morning because that's when they allow you to go to Univision and give a message to the community at the newscast of 5 a.m. in the morning. And you have to tape a lot of short 30 seconds radio spots that will give your voice every way, every time, every day for your nationals. Nothing can replace that in terms of outreach. Lesson number 7. We help Mexicans and Mexican Americans by helping them integrate into this society. But what about Mexican Americans, those who are born here, those who have full access to circles of economic and political power in this country? The stronger they become, the better for us, right? And fortunately, no one, absolutely no one, if you ask them, doubt that you can be a loyal citizen of this country and at the same time honor your roots and want to develop ties with the homeland of your ancestors. So vis-a-vis the Mexican-American leadership, the challenge is how to build networks. I know that it's not too sexy when I say this, that it's kind of complicated to grasp the concept. But what we do as consuls is just building networks. And the stronger the networks you can build, and the more useful you can be, and David Ayon, by the way, who's here, has written a lot about this, the stronger you can be in building those the stronger the networks you can build, the best service you are providing to the Mexican-American community and to the Mexican leadership of the immigrant community that understands this message. We have a particular experience, the Cien Amigos, working for California and Mexico organization, that I don't have time to explain you in great detail, that work closely with us, that, for example, on Monday we are organizing together the Mexico Advocacy Day at the Capitol in Sacramento, trying to raise awareness about Mexico, about the fact that Mexico is the #1 trading partner of California, even though the average California Democrat and the average California Republican think that Mexico is only a source of drug traffickers and undocumented workers. The fact is we are #1 trading partner. So we need to work with those networks. And the center of those networks, and in the question and answer period we could enter into greater detail, is the consulate. And you need to have a strong consulate that can do that. Now, the 8th lesson, once you are doing that, is that you have to focus on Mexico. Remember, the pan-ethnic label that characterizes everybody as Latino creates a great damage to us Mexican Americans when we are talking about a foreign agenda. Because if you are Mexican American, if you are of Mexican descent, when they think about a foreign policy agenda, they think about Mexico. They don't think about Paraguay. You can be Latino for domestic purposes, but there is no Latino foreign policy. There is no engagement with a homeland that is so abstract. So we need to focus on Mexico, in the case of the Mexican consuls. We need to focus on Mexico. And we need to focus in a way that is very particular and not easy to define and to sell properly. Mexico is a source of jobs for California and political capital for Latino decision makers. So, lesson number 9, vis-a-vis Mexican Americans, vis-a-vis that generation, there is the potential, not yet realized, but I do believe that in the future we will see that. There is the potential for creating a dialogue between the Mexican-American leadership in this country and Mexico that is intensive and open. That means nobody apologizes for calling each other every 5 minutes. Is focused on long-term goals and is non-partisan. Finally, I do think that we live in very interesting times because immigration reform is going to allow us, the Mexican consulates, to focus on the young generation. Because, as we all see, immigration reform as a student movement will be, to a great extent, the focus of our job in terms of community organization for the next few years. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. 4 different perspectives. Already we have hands up. And I think it reinforces once again the idea that public diplomacy is context-based, that they all have certain things in common, a desire to reach out to their diasporas, but they all do it in different ways based on time and place and the context of the country that they're in. So, you had your hand up first.
Thank you, all the presenters, for sharing with us so much useful information. My name is Carolina Scheinfeld. I'm an alumni from the Public Diplomacy Program. And my question has to do with the protection of your nationals, specifically now inside of a possible immigration reform, and what these individuals that are immigrants here in the United States could be subject of notarial fraud or predators that are looking into using this as a business. So what are your consulates doing in anticipation of that in terms of education campaigns and routing them to services that are reputable and informing your citizens?
Is that a question you'd like to direct to somebody or just to the panel as a whole?
For each of them, yeah. Like if you have started any campaigns in that sense.
Let's go through this because we may end up coming down to the bottom. Please, we'll start at the far end.
Because we've heard Bob mentioned earlier that, for instance, the number of migrants or those staying in the United States, especially coming from Asia, are high. Actually, the Philippines is one of them. In my case, the consulates all over the United States, we have around 6 or 7 of them, we are actually having regular dialogues with our Filipino communities. And this dialogue is anchored in the fact that the host country has every right to make its own policy decisions on, of course, on the legislation about immigration. But this is where I said that the diaspora is very useful because we have what we call the Philippine American Bar Association. So the Philippine American Bar Association is a group of Filipino American lawyers who were born and nurtured here, who understands, who provides the platform and the pathway of making these Filipinos who are immigrants who came from the Philippines at the age of 9 or 10 and are staying here now, most of them still undocumented, and what they do is educate them, provide them some learning curves, understanding the history of U.S. immigration and where they stand at the moment. So this is an ongoing process, and we're very happy that we have this Philippine American Bar Association, and this is a pro bono activity of the group. Thank you.
Well, we don't have a huge immigrant population in the United States, and most of Turkish immigrants are generally goes to schools in the United States or well educated. But we do offer, we have some Turkish American lawyers who helps us in immigration issues. We not as a consulate, but together with the Turkish NGOs, we organize some events in which the Turkish American lawyers gives advice on immigration issues to Turkish Americans here in the United States for free. And we are thankful for that.
Thank you. As I indicated earlier on, that the numbers of South Africans, in the U.S., it's negligible. So we are not going to be affected that much, by the immigration reform. What we have done, we've linked with some other South Africans who have come through to us, but who are still retaining their South African citizenship, insofar as the promotion of the partnerships, between our country, South Africa, and the West Coast region in particular. So we are not, that particularly, affected. As I said, that quite a number of them, particularly those that are in the New York area, South Africans that are there, the majority of them are here illegally. So what do people who are in this country illegally they do? They just go underground. So in this part of the world, the West Coast here, it's just only affording services, to those South Africans who have, in actual fact, registered, with this project, which South Africa calls registration of South Africans abroad. And the numbers, again, they are negligible. It's not so much.
Unfortunately for us, it's a big problem. It's a big problem because not only in the last few months when a concrete reform has started to be discussed, more now than before, but for the last 2 decades, since 1986, when the last big regularization effort was approved, Mexican nationals have been the victim of fraud in this regard. We are talking about a huge population, 6 million Mexicans who are approximately 6 million Mexicans who are undocumented who live here. That's why we have such a wide network of consulates in the United States. Each one of our consulates have a series of attorneys, immigration attorneys, that under contract, and we send them certain cases that are of extreme importance or relevance or precedent-setting type of cases, because we don't have enough money, nobody would, to offer legal resources paid by the consulate to those 6 million undocumented people. The cases in which we specifically contract an attorney on behalf of a national is, for example, to name an example, someone who does not have a birth certificate from Mexico when migrated here, and doesn't have a birth certificate here, obviously, in the United States, because he's undocumented. And so it's difficult for us to document him. We offer them a protection passport, but in order to make sure that he falls under certain circumstances, we hire an immigration attorney, particularly now that DACA allows their regularization. But those are in general, what we do are seminars. Every Wednesday, for example, in my consulate, we offer a seminar for so-called dreamers, people who might benefit for the Deferred Action Program.
I was struck by something Carlos said, where he opened up the issue of negative perceptions of the country. However, our other representatives didn't really deal with some of the problems attending the images of their country. You know, the Philippines leads the world, maybe in fun, but also in murders of journalists. And this is something that we can diasporas help with this. The Turkish government is refusing to recognize the genocide of Armenian people, and that's a really big issue here in Los Angeles. Can the diaspora help with this and other problems that Turkey's been involved with over recent years, human rights problems? And South Africa, has a big problem with crime. You think about I know the reaction in South Africa to the rape in India was, this is a common practice in South Africa, we have to talk about this. Can diasporas help engage communities around the image problems? Can they provide answers to these image problems? Or how do they fit into the sort of image problems that Carlos was alluding to in his presentation? Because this can't just be about
the positive,
celebrating our lovely identities that we left at home.
May I reply to that quickly? That's why sensitivity in culture is very important here. I mean, when we discuss these things with our communities, they raise these questions. But at the same time, it's a far more different question than questions of non-Filipinos. For instance, what we heard earlier from the ambassador on the projection of adversarial negatives. Coming from Asia, for instance, we will feel uncomfortable with that, of highlighting adversarial negatives. Because for us, it's putting more pressure of a different context on how you look at things evolving. If it's about the context, and this is basically about relationships again, involving our communities, when we present these problems on extrajudicial killings, they can fully appreciate and isolate whether it's in northern Philippines, central Philippines, or southern Philippines in Mindanao. But the non-Filipinos will have a different take on this. They look at that journalists are not safe in the Philippines. And people will not even look at, for instance, what the position of the government has been presented to the UN if they're just reading the reports of Mr. Phil Alston, the guy who was sent to the Philippines. And if I may just relate another story, having served as ambassador to Myanmar, for instance, when a special rapporteur, Thomas Quintana, went to Myanmar to undertake a fact-finding mission in February, he did visit political prisoners of his own choosing. Of his own choosing. When the news report went to the UN, his report came, and all the international wires reported it. He never said that he visited the political prisoners of his own choosing. He focused on his presentation that he never met Do Aung San Suu Kyi. I mean, I know that this issue on the extrajudicial killing is a different take, but what I'm saying is, it really depends on how much sensitivity you carry about a country that you are familiar with. So this is the difficulty for most diplomats, to understand that there is a problem, but at the same time, you have to look also on choosing your battles. Of do you speak now? In diplomacy, we always say that there are three things important: who carries the message, when you deliver the message, and how you deliver the message. If all three finds in perfect harmony, you're a good diplomat. But I see the conflict there, for instance, on the issue of adversarial messaging. That is quite difficult for a diplomat. I mean, trying to find the proper balance for it. I may not be good at it, I don't know, but I really feel very uncomfortable with that, of undertaking proactively as a strategy of adversarial negative messaging. Thank you.
About Turkey's the Armenian genocide issue, it's not a government's, I think it's a debatable issue. And in Turkey, one can say that or think that or defend that there was, and it was the 1915 events can constitute a genocide, and some others says that it didn't. So I will not go into this debate right now. But as for the human rights, well, we know that we don't have the perfect history with the human rights, but everybody around the world who knows something about Turkey, that Turkey is progressing towards better human rights. And if you look at the region around Turkey, Turkey is one of the examples of a modern democracy, a progressive modern democracy, and it's improving its human rights. And there is a new constitution is being drafted right now. It's debated in Turkey, and all the people, all the political factions, left, right, religious, secular, agree that this new constitution should emphasize the human rights issues, basic freedoms, not some other unimportant issues. And this comes partly from the interaction with the world itself, that Turkey's population interacted with Europe. Turkey has a major diaspora in Europe. Turkey has diaspora in the United States, and there are 5 million Turks living abroad. Turkey's population is around 72 million. So if you think about that, when they come back to Turkey, they tell the stories that how things are in those foreign countries, especially in Europe and the United States, and they are influenced by those institutions, democratic institutions, and they want to have those institutions in Turkey. So I think diaspora affects in that sense what's going on in Turkey.
Go ahead. Okay.
No, regarding the issue of crime, no country is immune, from criminal acts and what have you. But I believe that, regular interaction with the opinion formers, the media, the press, can go a long way towards addressing those. A case in point would be when the doomsayers, when South Africa, was about to host, the Soccer World Cup in 2010. The media all over the world, I won't mention countries, who were just saying, hey, the crime rate in South Africa, but they were proved wrong. There was only one incident of crime around the staging of the Soccer World Cup, and that involved a foreign national who murdered his wife, his newlywed wife, in Cape Town.
Mr. Gutierrez would like to make a comment on this issue.
Brief comment, although the question was not addressed to me. But in the case of Mexican communities, I think it's very interesting what's going to happen in the long term, because it's clear that we have a very conflictive relationship in many regards. I think that the diaspora is an agent of change, and that in most cases it's an agent of change for good, because Mexicans abroad are in favor of open borders, free market. Like many other diasporas in the United States, they advocate for a greater openness in Mexico, and I think that it is good for Mexico to have the diaspora as an agent of change, even if it's sometimes very critical of the government, although it's very diverse, so you cannot hear one single voice. But in the long term, the perception problem is shared, and that's very interesting. The Mexico that you see today, the problems that you see in Mexico today are not going to be the problems that you're going to see in Mexico in 5 years, let alone in 10 years. And for young people who are in elementary school in South Central LA having peer pressure because of image problems and to some extent low self-esteem because of their Mexicanidad, that will change. And that will change, and we will be able to help the more Mexico adopts the image that I think it's more attuned to its reality, which is of a middle-income country.
Susie, you were eager to ask a question.
Hi, I have a question for Mr. Arslan regarding your increased communication with the diaspora. Just about a week ago, as Armenian diasporas across the U.S. were commemorating the deaths of their grandparents in the genocide, Ergun Kirlikovali, one of the leaders and also the past president of the Turkish American Association, which is one of the most prominent Turkish diaspora organizations in the U.S., was seen at a counter-celebration in a gathering outside the Turkish embassy in D.C., and a similar gathering occurred in Canada. Despite the fact that your government chooses to deny the genocide for the last 98 years, why are these types of distasteful behaviors encouraged by the government, and what does this speak about the values of Turkish public diplomacy and its image?
Well, let me say I'm not familiar with the incident that you mentioned about celebration or any kind with the, I don't know. But I do know that there were some Turks, very small group of people in that Armenian issue. Commemoration at the embassy. There were, I think, 100 Armenians and 20 Turks. I don't know what happened, but an individual's action is an individual's action. I don't force them to do anything. Personally, I don't like to celebrate anything when someone commemorates anything. I personally think that it was a great tragedy in what happened in 1950s. A lot of innocent people died in those years. Turks, Armenians, it was World War I. These kind of things are unfortunate and should not happen again. But, and for that reason, I don't think that anybody should celebrate anything regarding that incident, regardless of how you define it. But I'm not just that person. I cannot speak on behalf of him. You better ask him this question to him. But I can assure you I'm not encouraging anybody, or my consulate or my government encouraging anybody to do such thing.
I think we obviously have a lot more questions here, and we are out of time. We are out of time officially. So I wanted to thank you all for coming, and I hope you learned as much as I did and appreciated the comments of our guests, and you give them a big round of applause.
Hi, everyone. When picking the conference theme, we wanted to focus on a topic that was both relevant in the academic field and in the real world. With the emergence of the information revolution, there has been a drastic change in the way we conduct public diplomacy. Today, we sought to engage just a few of these new front lines of public diplomacy: PD's domestic dimension, its importance in conflict zones, and its engagement with its diaspora.
Today we learned that public diplomacy starts at home with the domestic we also learned that there are many shades of conflict and that each PD strategy must adapt to a newly networked world. Lastly, we learned that the very notion of home has transformed through transnational migration, making links with diaspora a critical element of a nation's foreign policy.
We hope that you found these conversations engaging, insightful, and useful. And we hope that you can continue beyond today and continue to engage in conversations in future forums or online. This has been the start of an important dialogue, but we hope it does not end here. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you at the reception this afternoon.
So, panelists, if you haven't already, please do sign the poster that we have in the back, and we also have a small gift we'd like to give to you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.